Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everybody. Happy Monday night to everybody. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you have a good week in store. And welcome to Open Mic Night. Every Monday night at 9 p.m. I do a live stream for content creators and to meet people on the channel and to basically each week I go over one topic or I try to cover one thing and then fully open to Q&A, ask me anything type thing, even if it's not related to the topic tonight. If there's something that you're working on or something that you're wanting me to help you through, or some program that you're working on or a project that you just need a little help on, tonight you can ask me any related questions. But each week I will be here every week, every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern, usually trying to focus on one specific topic: After Effects, ScreenFlow, character animator, maybe down the road, Photoshop, Premiere Pro. I might introduce that in a little bit. All tech stuff, podcast related. I'll be doing Adobe Audition coming up pretty soon. And if you're coming on live tonight, welcome. And if you are watching the replay, welcome as well. And hopefully you find some use and value out of the stuff that I teach during the live streams. And again, if you are live, I do appreciate you stopping by. And if you have questions or if there's something that you want me to go over, if I'm teaching something and you didn't catch that, then just leave a comment in the chat, and I will be happy to stop and rewind and clear up any questions that you have. So yeah, hope everybody's having a great day so far. Great Monday, great start to the week, and I know I am, and hope you are too. So tonight I thought we would go over being After Effects. Adobe After Effects is something that I know a lot of you are either kind of know how to do or wanting to know more about. And I think that's in general for content creators. I see a big upswing on Adobe After Effects. I've been using it I've been in the Adobe Creative Cloud ecosphere for a long time. But I'm fairly new to After Effects. It's been a few years. I've been dabbling in it for a while. So just like you, I'm learning as well. I learn all this stuff. And then as I learn things, I make tutorials about them. So if you have questions, I may or may not know the answer. But I certainly will try to help you if you have any troubles or anything that you're not sure about. But definitely After Effects is one of those programs. I think knowing how to use it, and it's super powerful. It can do, it can be as complicated as you want to make it, and it can also be fairly simple to create really cool motion graphics that you can use for your, your YouTube channel, for your social media stuff, doing podcast promos, or just little, advertisement type things, or just eye-catching motion graphics. You can animate all sorts of things. You can animate still photographs, videos. Really, it's an amazing tool, and it's very big and powerful, but it's also, you don't need to know everything that it's capable of doing. You just need to start chipping away at it and start learning little things to help you get one project done. You'll pick up a few skills, create another project. As you keep going, you'll start picking up some things. Before you know it, you'll be comfortable in After Effects. So, and hopefully some of the tutorials that I'm creating, I try to blend the basics, the fundamentals, and the creative stuff all in. I'm trying to give you the building blocks to really learn what you're doing, and then be able to use the little fundamental stuff and apply it to your own, creative projects. So today I thought we would create some grit. Grit is fun, and grit is something like this, the little sparkly, or the chunks of grit floating across the screen. It's great for putting behind text. If you're doing some sort of animated text, it really is, provides a nice backdrop. These are black specks or grit. There's a bunch of different names for it. And then we have the inverse, which is white specks. And so black, white. It really depends on, what your project is. These, these grit layers are great if you want to, apply these to, put these as overlays on top of, other layers, so it's kind of subtle in the background, or you can use them as kind of a design feature themselves. And there's a million different ways to create things like this. There's all different techniques. You can customize these to your heart's content. There really is, I find many different ways to create stuff like that, usually by accident. So it's one of those things in After Effects. There's different ways, it's like Photoshop. There's a million ways to do the same thing. So tonight I'm just going to share one sort of technique that I use to make those. And I'm sure that I learned those, I learned this from picking apart other people's tutorials and just putting together, playing around with the settings. So basically, what I'll do tonight is I'll show you how to create those. But really what I want you to do with any of the tutorials that you're watching, whether they're mine or whether you're learning, After Effects from other people, is don't worry so much about the exact settings, is so much as like understanding that effect or that thing will be able to get you in the direction where you want to go. And then you'll just be able to, pretty much just apply custom settings or just start playing around with things until you get a look that you like. That's really how it is. And then if you find a look that you really like, then, create a note or create some sort of, cheat sheet for yourself so you can recreate that, or, export it as a file that you can reuse over and over again. So, so it should be fun. We'll create some grit tonight. And I've been doing this a couple weeks in a row, but I'll do it one more time. Oops, I don't know why that camera is in there, so I apologize. That's kind of the terrible camera. Let me try to get that out of there. I don't know if I can, but we're gonna try. Yeah, that's sort of the we don't want that camera. Let's get that out of there. I don't know why it's coming in as my camera, but we're going to have to get rid of that camera. That's my webcam that's not even pointing at me, so I apologize for that one. We're going to create that just for a second. Delete it. Okay. Yeah, so before I get started, if you look here, this is kind of a top-down view of my setup here. And I am rebuilding my entire website. It's going to be a kind of a multi-week project. But one of the things that I've done recently is I've updated my resources page. And my resources page has all of the, all the tools that I use on a regular basis. So these are, a few products that I'm making. I have a few more products that I'm launching. I'm launching a ScreenFlow course coming out very soon, and I'll put anything that I'm making in terms of projects or products and on this website. I'm also going to try to keep this as updated as possible, but this is going to be tools and services that I use, my podcasting hosts and WordPress, website hosting companies, just tools that I use. I always find that helpful when I'm following a creator or some people that I follow online. I like to know what they're using. That's usually how I learn about new tools, things that I hadn't heard about, or things that I wasn't sure if people liked, and then I find somebody that that I resonate with and they're using it, so I'm like, oh, that's good to know. I might give that a try. So these are the tools and services. They're fairly updated. I basically went through and deleted a whole bunch of things that I used to have on my resources page that I no longer use or that I no longer really like. I try to keep everything on here that I actually use and like. And I'm missing something there, and that's a bummer. I don't know what that is, but I'll fix that at another time. So yeah, so here's all the gear I use, the podcasting and audio gear. I wouldn't say it's 100% inclusive. I just try to pare it down, but it's a good chunk of it, along with my photo, video, lighting stuff, tech and accessories. These are some of the things that you'll find on my desk, along with cables. I also find cables to be quite helpful when people share what cables they're using. I'm always kind of trying out new cables. I think they're the culprit of a lot of problems. So I'm always trying to get good cables. And if I think there's a problem with something, I often will swap out the cables to, kind of check it. But yeah, so if you haven't been to my website, I encourage you to poke around. And in the next couple weeks, it's going to be changing up a little bit. But it's not going to change all that much. But I am starting to put my tutorials on there. As I make them, I will be adding tutorials, and all of my podcast episodes are on there, 157 episodes. I've been slacking in the last couple of years, but I'm going to be bringing the podcast back. And let's see here. We've got I'm going to be putting my blog posts. I write on Medium. That's been a little bit slow in the last year, but I am a writer at heart. And yeah, so I encourage you to check it out. MikeMurphy.co, resources, and yeah. So, as they say, usually within about 10-minute intro of a typical podcast, without further ado, not the live stream, just for those who have been following me for a little while. The live streams are quite unique to my typical style, which is very fast and to the point in my tutorials. I am obsessive about no fluff in my tutorials, yet in the live stream, to me, it feels like if I was watching the replay, it wouldn't quite be the same experience, because I do feel like there's a lot of excess in terms of what I typically do. So it's fun for me to be on the live streams and to not be so stressed about, not stressed, but, being able to banter or ramble a little bit. But if you're watching the replay, my tutorials are generally a little bit shorter and to the point. So here's what we're creating one more time. This is going to be the black grit. So it's, the dark specks on a lighter. You would put this on a lighter background or overlay it over something that you could see. And then basically it's the inverse of this. It would be the white specks on a dark background. This is my navy blue color. You probably would see it often on a black background. So maybe we'll create the background, but that does not matter. The main thing that I'm going to show you tonight is in Adobe After Effects. And I'm just going to show you more or less if you could think of it like a recipe, is the way I think of a lot of cheat sheet stuff. And this is going to be just a way to create this, speckled texture grit thing is the way I call it. So I'm just going to turn on something here. So give me a second here while I flip this off. I don't want this to go off in the middle of it. So I am going to turn this on. I'm going to pull up. There we go. All right. So we are in Adobe After Effects. I am using the latest version. If you are on the Adobe Creative Cloud, I'm a big proponent, advocate of all my technology to keep things up to date. I know a lot of people don't like to keep things up to date because they're afraid they're going to be changed. I'm kind of the opposite. I think the security fixes and all those things are important. So I would encourage you to, if you're not diligent about it, if you don't think about it, to just check your Creative Cloud. You don't have to do it obsessively like some people, but it is a good idea to go into your Creative Cloud and just, keep your apps up to date. So I am using the latest version, 2022. So here we are. Very, very basic stuff. It is, this is really, really easy. If I pull in here into this is the layers panel, you can see here that I just have basically two, let me just get this out of here. I have two layers making this entire effect. I have the white speck layer, and I'm just going to call this one dark solid. And there is a good tip right off the bat. Surprisingly, how many people don't know this is on a Mac and on all the Adobe products. But to rename something, you can double click a lot of times and it'll open up the layer, so it's kind of confusing when you can double click on things. The easiest way to rename anything is just simply hit the enter or return key. Just hit it once and just start typing. So rather than trying to, you could right click or control click and choose rename, just hit enter or return. Same thing works on your Mac if you're a Mac user. Just if you want to rename a file, a folder, just hit the enter or return key and just start typing. So there's your first little tip, unrelated to After Effects. So yeah, we just have two layers. One is a background layer. It's a solid. And then the other is just a the effect layer. So if we bring up the settings, let's see here what settings I have. I think I have a 4K setting. I'm not sure why. I think I exported this. So normally I would just do like a 1920 by 1080. Let's see here. I'm locked here. Let me get this here. Hold on one second while I pull this one up. Okay, so yeah, so this one's a 4K 3840 by 2160, which is a setting that I will sometimes use for exporting things just because it's bigger. You can kind of get a little more space if you're putting on things, but you could generally just do a 1920 by 1080. This doesn't really matter. A 10-second duration, that's a pretty lengthy, animation for little small stuff. But I often start with 10 seconds, 5 or 10 seconds. Another little bonus tip. Let's just create a new composition before we do anything. And we will start from there. To create a new composition, let me zoom this back in. Let me zoom out a little bit. When you want to create a new composition, you come up to the top. Composition, new composition, or this is kind of a must-know keyboard shortcut if you are learning Adobe After Effects. Control or Command N. That will just bring up this little dialog box. Here you can create if you have a custom preset, you can do that, or just type in manually. You can do. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm typing in. Make it a little easier for you to see. Yeah, I can just type in 1920 by 10. Actually, you know what? I'm going to keep it the same because I'm just going to I have these settings written down. So let me do this. 3840. Let's see, was it 2160? So I'm going to keep it at the 4K. Let me just see. 34. Yeah, I'm going to keep it at the 4K just for this example because I had the settings sort of written down just to make it so it would kind of translate the same. But this really could be anything. Again, we're not really looking at the settings, but they get there's a lot of them. So I just thought to keep it consistent and to have it give the same look, I would just keep it this way. So I'm doing 4K, the 3140 by 2160, 30 frames per second, full. And then let's just do 10 seconds. So to do 10 seconds, you can type in 10, comma. Okay, that's the easy way to do it. And you just tab off. And this little background color right here, when you're creating a new composition, you can change it to any color you want. But this color right here is really just the color that you like to work in. This color here, when you are creating a new composition, it doesn't go in the final render. It is not going to be visible when you export your any project in After Effects. So the color that you choose here does not matter. It's really just a visual preference that you like, and it just makes it easy when you're designing things to have a color, you know, versus the transparent grid. I'll show you what I mean here. So this is a transparent grid, right? Which honestly, if you're designing stuff on this, it's kind of hard to see. So the reason that they do put a, the reason that there is a color on the background, so that blue in this case, is really just to make it easier for you to see. But this blue, even though it's visual the whole time you're designing something in After Effects, it will not show up in the final render. So if you do want a color, like let's say that you did want this blue, then you actually have to create a color, and oftentimes what color you would use is a solid. In a solid, you get to at the top menu with a couple ways. Layer, New, Solid, keyboard shortcut, Command Y, another very good keyboard shortcut to learn. Or you right click down here and choose New, Solid, another easy kind of way to do it. Click Solid, there's the same exact color. I usually click this button right here, which is Make Comp Size. And what that does is just make sure that the solid is the exact same size as your composition. So click that, click OK. And now, even though it looks exactly the same, if I click this little, let me zoom in so you can see what it is. So this little button right here, hopefully you can see my cursor. So this little button right here is the transparency grid toggle. So if I was to click this without the solid layer, if I click it with just that blue background, it looks the same, right? But when you see a transparent grid, when you click this button, that means that you do not have a background. But when I add the solid layer, so if I make that solid visible, you're not see what I'm doing. So I just toggled on the visibility of that. So with it toggled on, now when I click on this transparent grid, it stays blue because it's actually a blue background. But if it did not have it, you see I got the transparent grid because the blue color of a solid is not real, if that makes sense. So now we have a blue solid layer, okay? And we're going to be actually adding this effect on a solid layer. So to make things more confusing, the solid layer, when you're adding effects such as what we're doing tonight, the color doesn't even matter at all. So when you add a new solid for the sole reason of just adding an effect, oftentimes it doesn't matter what color you use. So, all right. Any questions or anything that you're not sure about, please just drop a comment. If I'm going too fast or if I'm just skipping over things that you're just not following or you don't even know where I'm at, then tell me. But right now we're just basically setting things up. So I have one solid layer, okay? That's it. And then we're going to be creating the let's create the white specks first. So the white specks, I want it on this dark blue background. So that's why I created this blue solid right here, because we're going to create white specks on that, okay? And let me just so the blue background is going to be the background that I used for the actual specs itself. So when you saw this example here that we're creating, so I've got a blue background, so that's going to stay, okay? But now I'm going to add another background. Again, this next solid layer does not a background, another solid layer. This next solid layer does not matter what color it is. This is what we're going to use to create the specs, okay? So I'm going to go back to that same thing and go to Layer, New, Solid. I can change the color just so you can see. I'll change it to a lighter blue just so we're not confused. Make comp size. So, okay, so now we just have this layer here that I'm going to use to add the effect, and the background is going to be this navy blue color, okay? Now we're going to come up here into the effect controls. Whoops. That should come over here. So we're coming over here to the effects and presets in the top right corner, okay? If you don't see anything over here, you typically get to that by going to the window menu, window, and then just come down to effects and presets. And if you're not sure, let's just come back here. Under window workspace, I'm using the default workspace. So if you want yours to look like mine, I'm in the default workspace, okay? So let's head on over here to the effects and presets. In the search field right here, I'm going to do a search for Fractal Noise. So F-R-A-C-T-A-L. You should see Fractal Noise. There's a couple of them here, but we're looking for this one right here, Noise and Grain. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Just so I don't want you to miss any steps. So when you have a layer selected, so we're going to be adding this fractal noise onto this top solid layer here. When you have a layer selected and you want to add an effect, you can just double click on it and it will add it to the effect. Or you can just simply click and drag right onto the comp window, or you can click and drag it right onto the layer itself. So After Effects, what I love about it is actually it doesn't get in your way. I don't know if that makes sense, but a lot of programs kind of have to fight to do stuff. After Effects just flows the way that works for you in a lot of ways. I really find it one of the more enjoyable of the programs. So you look at this and you might not know what the heck is going on here. Quite honestly, this effect right here this fractal noise is the foundation of a lot of effects that you probably don't even know, how they did it, myself included. But fractal noise is one of those effects that really can be it can be the base of a lot of things. You can really make it do a lot of things. Then when you overlay it onto stuff and blend it in, or the way it kind of works, it creates some pretty cool effects. So we are going to come up here to the effect controls. So the left side of your screen, in most cases, it really depends on your workspace, but the left side is the effect controls, and that's when you have the effect controls when you add an effect onto a layer. And then the other one, when we added when we added the fractal noise, that is actually the effects and presets. So the effect controls is what you use to customize all effects. Okay, so we've got this fractal noise here, and basically when you are applying settings, and this is kind of the basis of everything in After Effects, the way to learn it is just simply come over here. Like literally, this is the way I learn every effect. Just start dragging the sliders. Like literally you just start moving sliders and see what they do. And oftentimes they create something that you're like, oh, that's cool. And that's honestly the way that I learn a lot of things, and a way that I really encourage people to learn, is to not be afraid about turning the dials and just basically just start moving things. And then before you know, you're gonna be like, oh, I like that. Or I had no idea that did it. Or sometimes it doesn't appear to do anything, but try it out. Okay, so what we're going to do, basically, whenever I do anything with the effects, I just kind of go down the line and make the changes. And so it's really not a again, a lot of times you just kind of play and you're like, you might think you're going for something, then you just start hitting through the things and you're like, oh, I kind of like that. So for this fractal type, we're going to keep it at basic. But again, there's all these things down here where you start moving it and you're like, okay, that's kind of cool. And again, a lot of these things are not going to make sense as you're just looking at them like this. But if you can start to visualize, like let's say that you started animating this over something else, you might be able to, as you start to learn what these effects do, you might be able to be like, oh, you know what? I bet that would produce a pretty cool, effect. Again, some of it's going to take your time of just starting to sort of trust that you are following what might happen down the road. But all of these little things right here, can really just make really cool effects, and you wouldn't know unless you sit, play with them. So definitely, as you start to apply some of these effects, just start changing things around and see what they do. But we're going to keep this at basic. For the noise type, I'm going to click on this. I'm going to change it to block. So when I change it to block, you see it kind of gets a little bit like that digital space. So we're going to keep it like that. For contrast, you just crank this up. And what you see here is, like with a lot of things that are blending in Photoshop and After Effects, the black and the white, they're often just the way that they blend from lights and darks and luminance, and so the contrast is really going to be, it's going to play into how the specs are. So I'm going to change this to, again, these are not set in stone. I have 1250. For the brightness, now the brightness, when you're creating this little grit account, the brightness is the thing that actually is making them white or black. So if you wanted, white specks, you would go into the negative. If you want black specks, I would go 600, and now you can see here, like if I just drag this around, you can see we have black specks, right? Pretty cool. But let me just reset that a little bit. If I was to go into the negative, so I'm at 600 now. If I go to negative 600, just like that, now we have white specks. Pretty cool, huh? So that is really, right there alone is something that, like, when I first learned it, I was like, oh, cool. That's as easy as that. So we're creating white, and now the rest of it is really just creating the kind of speck field that you want. So, and you could imagine, doing this, maybe there's other ways to do it, but like maybe a star field, or maybe, lots of different things you can do. So negative 600, I'm twirling these down just to see if there's anything that we want to change in here. Rotation, I have the rotation is, I'm going to put in 225. I don't know where this number came from originally, but that really is just, you can see here how it's kind of spinning. So that must have been a number that I played around with at one point and I liked. So again, next time you do it, you might like something totally different. In the scale, I'm going to put 125. Okay. Now you're going to play with these because you can see maybe you want super small specks, like kind of like a star field. That might be the look that you want. So I have a little bit bigger. I wanted maybe just a little bit more spaced out. So, but again, it just depends on the look that you're going for. The scale width, 125. This stuff I'm going to keep all the same. The complexity, this is just really, it's going to be either the brightness or kind of like the way the shapes are kind of popping off the screen a little bit. I'm going to keep it at 7. I'll keep that at sub settings. I'm not going to change any of that. Okay, so here's often, in a lot of these effects, there's a couple of them that we have these evolution options. So you can change the evolution, or you can change the random seed. And the random seed is, oops, I'm sorry, I think that I'm right in front of you, right in front of the settings. Apologize about that. So what I'm talking about is right here, these evolution options. They're in a couple different effects, and this is really the way that what we do is you can animate these keyframes. So in After Effects, when you see a stopwatch next to any property, that means that you can animate that property. So anything can be animated. You can do, you could go from white to black by animating the brightness, or you could change, any of these settings that have a stopwatch, which is pretty much everything in After Effects. You can add keyframes, which means that you can animate that property. So the property that we're going to be animating in this case is, you would either do the evolution or the random seed. And we're going to do the random seed, which is just basically going to give it a more sporadic thing. Since we're doing kind of a grit looping texture, The random seed is the thing we're going to do. And we're going to add a expression. And I know when I was new to After Effects, expressions were like the scary thing, but they're not scary. An expression is really just it's code that you probably not going to know what half of them are. I mean, some of them are pretty basic, you can figure them out, but they're just a string of codes, and it seems complicated because you don't have a lot of control over them unless you know what the parameters are. But expressions allow you to put in one little thing and it will animate the thing over and over again. So we're going to hold the Option key on a Mac, Alt on PC, and you're going to click on the stopwatch next to the random seed. So I have the Option key pressed. I'm just going to click, and I want you to once I click on this, I want you to come down here and look at the timeline. Okay, so here I go. Option key is pressed. I'm clicking on the stopwatch. Okay. Oh, what just happened? What just happened? I don't know how that happened. That backfired on me. I think I clicked on the back of the program. I'm not sure what just happened, but Option key is pressed. Alt if you're on Windows. Click on the stopwatch for random seed. The joys of live stream. So when I do this, you can see here where my face is right in front of it. It opened up this little expression right here. Okay. So we need to add an expression now for the random seed. And if you're not sure where we are, if you're not sure, did I get the right effect or what's going on, you can see here that whatever you're doing in the effect controls is lining up to what is in the layers. So this stuff that you just saw here, we're down in the layers panel now, but it's the same thing that was up in the effect controls. So you can see here the random seed. I could have added this expression right here, but we did it up in there, and then you just come down here and you type in the expression. Okay? The expression I'm going to use is a two-parter. And the other reason I'm going to do it this way is because I want to add something called posterized time, which is going to give it a little bit of a stop motion, herky-jerky type feel versus a smooth animation. But we're going to type in posterized time. So posterized, lowercase p, O-S-T-E-R. You can see it starting to fill out for you. If you just hit tab or enter, it's going to fill in the rest for you. And in the parentheses, it's asking you what frame rate you want. So, a smooth animation video frame rate is going to be 24, 25 if you're outside of the US, 30, 60. But if you're doing more of a stop motion feel, you might go down to 15, 12, 10, 6. I'm going to type in 6, okay? Totally random. I just like the look of stop motion, okay? I'm going to put a quote or a semicolon. So whenever you're creating two expressions next to each other, you can put a semicolon, or you could hit enter, return, and go to the next line. But I'm going to put a semicolon. And now I'm going to do basically the expression. If you didn't want to do the posterized time, you could just put in time. This is the way to animate the evolution options. Time times. So we're going to put the shift 8. That's the asterisk for the times or the multiplication. And we're just going to type in a number. I'm going to put in 250. Okay? So if you did not want the posterized time, if you're ever just animating a property like the evolution options, time times something, time times 50, times 100, times 1,000, that's a great little expression to know because it's basically just going to animate that property, and it's very common. But putting the posterized time before it is going to give it that little herky-jerky. And I screwed something up, which means that I have an error. So let me see what I did. You see that little yellow bar? That tells me there's an error. And that just means I can't see that what I typed in. So it just means that I botched up the expression somehow. So I probably did something. Okay, let me zoom in because I'm having trouble seeing. So I'm going to type in posterize. time 6 semicolon time times 250. Click off. Okay, so that was right. Whatever I did the first time was incorrect. And now I'm just going to zoom out so you can see. Come on. So we should be about done with the white grit, or the black grit. I'm going to tap on the tilde key. That's in the top left corner of your keyboard. The tilde key is going to allow you to go into full screen. I'm going to hit the space bar to preview. I'll get out of your way there. I'm going to hit the space bar to preview. And look at that. We have a grit. If I wasn't talking and trying to walk things through, that probably would have taken less than a minute to create a kind of a little gritty background. And again, all you would do if you're saying that's too slow, there's not enough grit, it's too big, it's too this, it's whatever the thing is, all you do, I'm going to hit the tilde key, all you do is just come up to the top, you go back to the effect controls, and you literally just start moving things until you get a look that you want. That's it. You move the complexity. You don't like it, you move the contrast. You don't like that, you go into the transform and maybe you change the scale. Maybe you want to make them really big. Maybe you want to make them spaced out. Again, these are things that you just fully experiment with until you get a look that you like. Easy as that. I want to make sure there's no questions. Let me just check here. Not seeing any questions, so either you can't hear me, don't understand me, or not there at all, which is fine. If you're watching this on the replay, the questions, you can still send them my way. So we have, just like that, have created a little bit of a dancing chunky grit thing that you can put behind, add some text on top of that, or put this over an image. You can export this as a little file that you can, sometimes I like to put these at the end of my video where you put a little text on top and, I don't know. I'm making an awful lot of noise tonight, but with my cursor for some reason. Yeah, you can do some sort of, you can start animating text, a little explainer video type thing, and this little gritty dancing thing just adds some interest. You see it all over, and this is the black, so you would put it on a light background or a white background. And if you wanted to change the background, you can just add something below it. You can add new solids, if you wanted to add, if you wanted to add a solid white, you could do that. If you wanted to add, you get the point. So I did that again. I must be clicking on something. Apologize. That is not the color that I'm going for, I can tell you that. But anyways, that is the black grit. Let's do the same just so you understand how I did it, and we'll do it in the white grit, or the lighter grit. So we'll do a dark background, black, blue, doesn't matter, and we will just add some specs to it. All right. Let's do the same. So I'm going to jump out of here. We'll go into back to our thing here. I'm going to create a new composition. We know how to create a new composition. Command or Control N will bring up the new composition. I'm going to keep the settings the same, 3840, 2160, 10 seconds. We'll use that blue background. Click OK, and now we have ourselves no background. We know I created a blue background. I can see the blue if I uncheck the transparency, but that blue is non-existent in terms of what's going to render out of a video if you were to export it. But let's create a new solid. This will be the background layer. So remember, we're creating the, well, let's go up here and name these. Always name your compositions, right? If you watch Ben Marriott, I'm sure if you're watching After Effects, if you know Ben Marriott, has a funny little thing. We always label our layers, probably because most creatives do not, even though we want to and we think we should. It's very easy not to. But yeah, hit enter or return, and we're going to call this one white specks. How about that? White specks. I'm going to click on comp 2, and we'll call it enter return. We'll call this black specks. Oh no, what do we do? No, we already did white specks, so I'm going to do, this one is white specks. The other one was actually dark specks. Okay. Alright, so we are in the white speck layer. Let me pull you up close here so you can see what I'm doing. So we have no layers right now at all. Okay, so it's just the background layer. To create a new solid, the keyboard shortcut, what is it? That's right, Command Y, or you can just right click right here and choose new solid, or if you come up to the top, layer, new solid, and you'll see there's that keyboard shortcut, Command Y. Definitely a keyboard shortcut you want to know. We're creating white specks, so let's create a dark, I never go pure black, but pretty close to black. We'll go right down to the bottom there. Okay, click OK. So now we have a black solid that we're going to put our white specks on. We're going to create one more solid. So we're going to come down here. So we have the dark gray solid, and we're going to create another solid. I can create a new solid by doing this, or since it's going to be the exact same thing, let's just call this one background. So I'll hit enter or return and call this BG. And I'm going to create a new solid layer. Again, the new solid that we're applying the fractal noise to, the color does not matter because once we add the noise to it, the color is gone. So we are just going to duplicate this. So I'm going to hit Command D, another great keyboard shortcut, something that I use non-stop on After Effects. So Command D, you can also right click, I believe, somewhere here there's a duplicate, but we're just going to use Command D, a must-know keyboard shortcut, and we're going to call this one, we'll call it Fractal Noise. How about that? I'll call it white specks. Okay, so we have 2 layers. That's it. I mean, you have a pretty cool effect for just 2 layers. You can't beat that. So I'm going to come up here to the effects and presets. We're in the top right corner here. You're doing a search. I know we already have it, but I'm just getting you used to how to do it. You click in the search field, fractal, and there's our fractal noise. I'm just going to click on it and drag it right onto the composition window because we have our layer selected and it's added onto that layer. Okay, now you're going to just zoom on over to the left here. So let's just see here. We're going to zoom to the left in the top right or the top left corner. In my case, probably your case too. Most times the effect controls are in that top left corner. We are just going to start adding more or less the same exact settings that we did on the previous one. If you wanted to do a 1-in-1, you could actually just, we're going to go through it because I want to, but you could actually just take this and copy it. You could just copy it, come over to your white specks, and paste it right onto it, and it would basically, you could just, copy the effects from one composition to the next, and be easy as that, and change a few settings. But we're going to do it from scratch. So we're going to go up to the noise type, and we're going to change that to block. Okay. For the contrast, let me just do one thing here. Dark sparks. Okay, for the contrast, I'm going to do 1250. For the brightness, remember, we went to the negative. Now we're going to go to positive. So I'm going to type in 600. I totally have these backed up. My mind is just going crazy. Let me back up. I was right the first time. We created black the first time. I don't know why I'm having, my brain is inverted. This is white. Yeah, I don't know why I had that so turned around. And this is dark. Hopefully you're following along with me. So we're doing dark. So we're in the positive on the effect controls, okay? So we were in the negatives when we created the white, and now that we're doing the dark, we are in the positives. So 600 is a number that I came up with, but again, you can go, as you see here, the more you go, it kind of disappears, and when you go, less bright, you start to get more. So you can see here, maybe you wanted a really dense, field of grit. So you could bring the brightness down. As you see, it kind of starts to get really chunky. And then maybe you could do something like the transform. And, you can see something like that. You get this really dense. So we made the scale a lot smaller. Or you can make it really big and kind of make it really almost like broken type thing. Again, what is the effect that you're going for? And sometimes 99% of the time in my case, I just experiment until I get a look that I like. I wasn't even going for that look. I didn't know it was possible to get the look. I mean, half the things that you do in After Effects, you can create the impossible. So by playing around, you're just gonna sometimes get a happy accident and just find something that you're like, I had no idea. So yeah, so I'm gonna go back to 600. Again, it's pretty small. So we're gonna go to the scale. I'm gonna do the scale at let's see here. I'll do one. Which scale did I have in the top one? Let's go what did I have on this one? I just want to try to get these similar. 125, yeah. So I'm going to do 125 on this one as well, just so we can compare them. The same, okay. For the rotation, I'm going to do 225. For the scale width, so you can see right here, the scale width I was unable to do. That's because I have this little check right here, uniform scaling. But I can change that scale width independently. Not that it really matters, but I'm going to do 125. I'm just going to give this one a little bit different, 350. Yeah, actually I don't really like that. I'm just going to keep it like that. For the complexity, I'll keep the complexity at 7. Okay. We're going to add an expression now. So let me just zoom out here. Let's see what this one is right here, though. Let me check this right here. Yeah, that's... I want to zoom out so you can see it. Remember, we're down here on the bottom. We're in the evolution options. I'm going to twirl it open, and we're looking at random seed. So to add an expression, you're going to press the Option key, Alt on PC, and you're going to click on the stopwatch. And that's pretty much the way to add expressions for most properties, or all properties that I'm aware of. You hold the Option key or Alt key, and you click on the stopwatch, and then basically the expression field opens up, and then you can just type in your expression. So I'm going to click in random seed. I have the Option key pressed. Okay. So I'm clicking. Now you see here down in the timeline, that expression for random seed is waiting for me to type something in. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add two expressions. The first is posterized time, lowercase p, OSTERIZE, capital T, IME, open and close parentheses. Inside the parentheses is the frame rate you want. I want the frame rate of 6. That's a number that I like. I'm going to put a semicolon after the parentheses. And then I'm going to type in time, TIME, Shift 8 to get the asterisk, or the multiplication sign. And then I'm typing in 250. Because that was a number that I was just playing around with, and it worked. So I'm going to come up here so you can see what I'm doing. Let me get out of the way a little bit. I'll tap the tilde key. Let me pull you up so you can see. Press the space bar. And now we've got ourselves a little dancing grit. White background, black grit. I move this over a little bit. Now, that might not be enough grit. I don't know. I'd probably go a little bit more. It's kind of zoomed in, so it looks a little bit weird. It's kind of subtle, kind of basic. But again, this isn't about getting the look the first time that you want. This is about just knowing that this is how it's possibly done, or this is a way to do it. And then coming up with a recipe for your project, what you're looking to do. You might want something super subtle. You know, you might want to, let's just see here. You might want to, so I can come like this. I'm trying to make it so you can see everything, so just bear with me. But let's say that again, we have these dark specks here, so I can come over here to my libraries and, add that's not going to work because of the so let's see if this will work if I go to the library. Let me see if I've got anything in here that I can do it. I got an image here. Did that come out? Okay, here's a big image here. Oop, came out twice. So I could put this under. So what I did was just basically put that, let me just scale this up a little bit more. So you see what I did was just to give you a demo, or just to give you an idea, I put that layer on top, and basically just put a blend mode of multiply. Since it had a white background, it knocks out the white, the multiply, and it's just going to leave those dark specks. So it's something that you could put over some other, this isn't the way I would typically do it. I wouldn't use this image and put black specks dancing all over it. But I'm just giving you an idea that you could put this over something like that. Change the blend mode and you're good to go. And I'm also realizing that if you were to, let's just see here. I sort of did a little bit of a goof. Because you probably, let me just do one thing here. I'm just playing here for a second. So if I was to do this, I'm going to put another layer on here. I'm just testing a few things out here, so give me a second. I'm going to add it. And if you're wondering what I'm doing over here, which I'm blocking you, I keep all of my assets in the Adobe Creative Cloud libraries, which if you're not using, I highly encourage it, because that basically allows you to keep all the stuff that you reuse over and over again in a handy little bin that you can reuse in all of the Adobe Creative Cloud projects or Adobe Creative Cloud applications. And I'm, for whatever reason, just in a frozen tundra here. I don't know why. Yeah, so what I did basically, and I'll just sort of see, yeah, I don't know why there's a huge delay on my, it's like I'm gonna do this. I don't know if it's bogging it down, but I really am, there's something on my computer that's just having a bad time. So I'm having a real bad delay with stuff, so I'm apologizing. Sometimes it's hard for me to, I'm thinking something's not working, and then it's actually working, but just delayed. So so what I did basically was I put the, so initially I put the fractal noise on the, on a solid layer. But if you put it on a, like an adjustment layer, you see here, the adjustment layer, you can't see it because it's on this transparent adjustment layer. But if you put something under it, like that image, so if I went back to that image of myself, which I deleted, but let me pull it back up, maybe the computer gods will be a little faster on me. Yeah, I have a feeling that Adobe Character Animator was hogging some memory and choking up my machine. So I'm going to just pull that below the adjustment layer. Yeah, it's actually not doing any different. So you're still going to have to change the blend mode. So that was just an experiment that I was doing. So anyways, that right there though, either way you do it, or either white, dark. Let me pull this one up. This is the white background with the dark specks. And this is the dark background. This could be your star field if you were to create them really small. But that is a basic of how to add grit a dancing grit background that you can use for all sorts of things. Super handy. Again, it's, you know, something you can just export out. You can put them on top of things and just change the blend mode, and easy as that, you have yourself, you know, just some sort of interesting thing to put over, you know, to add as a texture, or add some interest to your animations by changing the blend mode and just getting that kind of spark. You can even take it up another notch if you were to, you know, maybe you want to add some noise. So I could come up here and do, let's just do noise. So we just added fractal noise, but let's add regular noise. I can drag it right on there. Let me do one thing. I'm going to add a new adjustment layer on top. See if I can do it that way. And just add noise to that adjustment layer. Let's see if, yeah, so I was just making sure it was coming up so I could see it visibly. I would obviously turn off the color in this case, so I would uncheck the use color noise. And I obviously would not make it that big. Let's do like 10%, see how that looks. Hit the space bar, and that just gives it a little bit of a, you know, an old-timey camera feel. You can, I'm zooming in. It looks, the specs always look weird when you zoom way in, but I'm doing that on purpose just so you can try to see the noise. Just adds a little bit of more realistic, old-fashioned feel to it. So yeah, so that is how to add grit. You use the fractal noise. And again, you can do it onto adjustment layers, you can do it onto solid layers, you can do it onto, you know, you can use it in several different ways. And the whole key, the thing that I want you to take away more than anything is when I go here, these settings over here with the fractal noise, there is no right or wrong. There's a little tip right there. See the little FX? If you toggle that off, that will actually toggle off any effect. So if I click on that, you can turn on and off an effect if you just want to see what something does. But yeah, so go through the fractal noise and just start experimenting and try to get you know, a look or a recipe that you like, and you say, you know what, I want this little file that I can use for whenever I'm creating a stop motion animation or whatever I'm doing, you know, typography explainer videos, or you know, things that you're going to be doing over and over again. Create a recipe, create a little bit of a texture library of different things that you can you know, just have on hand so you don't have to redo this every time. And yeah, they come in handy. I'm a fan of all the little grungy, gritty texture, stop motion, hand-drawn stuff. I love all of it. And these type of things, when I learn a new way, there are so many different ways to create things like this. This is just one common way, I think, is the fractal noise approach. But there are so many different things. I've stumbled upon them just doing things where things have fallen apart into little specks. I'm like, oh, this actually, I can make this animate and create the same effect. So that is your, you can see that's the exact same effect. I just added it on a different background. The same with the white grit. It's on the blue background, but it's the exact same thing that we just did using the exact same method. Pretty cool. Any questions? Anything anybody has on their mind? Anything that you're stuck on, that you're not sure? Again, I realize there's not a big live crowd at this moment. So if you're watching the replay and something, when I go live, there's always things that that tend to get out of jive or out of whack a little bit. Not a big deal. But if something that you're doing or something that you come across didn't work, or you just don't understand, or if there's something else that you're stuck on, or something you want me to cover, if there's a tutorial that you want me to make, send it my way. I have a list a mile long of things that I'm trying to get through, but if there's something that you want me to cover or something that you're really like, you haven't done this in a while, or I would really like you to cover this, by all means, let me know. I am always really up for, I love tutorial requests, because all that tells me is that somebody needs to learn something, and that's what I'm always seeking. I'm trying to make tutorials that I think are going to be helpful at the current time, at the current, state of where we're at in the content world, or what I'm currently working on that I'm finding helpful for what I'm doing, hoping that other people are on the same part of the journey I am. So if there is a request or something that you just really want me to cover, drop me a comment and I just put it on my list. And if it's something like, oh, that's a great idea, I'll get right on it. So, but I think tonight I'm going to call it a wrap, since it's a little over the hour mark. And I thank everybody who did join live. And if you're watching the replay, I also thank you for coming by and saying hello and watching the videos. And I hope you got some value out of it. And if you are just finding me or just discovering me, I would love for you to stick around and join our community, which is growing. And hopefully in the next year or two, I'm hoping to really take this off to really build a community of like-minded people who are just out to create stuff, start a new business, kind of make it on their own, do their own thing. That's what I am out to do, is trying to forge my way through this world as doing my own thing and making stuff and creating content that is helpful to others and solving people's problems. And if you are also in that same space or in that same trajectory of trying to create the life that you want, then hit the subscribe button and drop me a comment. Let me know what you're up to, what you're working on, what you need help with, or just say hello. I would love to meet you. Say hello. And on that note, I hope you all have a fantastic week. Hope you have a great, productive week. Everything's going well. Working hard, making progress. Just keep learning stuff. Keep moving forward. And I will see you next week, every Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Join me. Tell other people. Come on by. Ask me questions. Leave questions during the week that you want me to answer in the following Monday. And I will see you all next Monday. Peace.